we just got done watching number one Arizona take their first loss of the season to Kansas, the number 19 in the country, without Darren Peterson, who is probably arguably the number one prospect in the draft this year. But even though he wasn't playing and he was out with flu-like symptoms, there was still a lot of interesting prospects to watch in this game, even if they aren't necessarily going to go this year. Really fun game, a very loud, great atmosphere and Allen Fieldhouse. Jake, what were your kind of thoughts on the game before we dive into the meat of this?
Yeah, the atmosphere, I'm glad you brought it up. That was one of the craziest crowds and arenas we've seen this entire season. I mean, it was from before the game to, to the closing buzzer when they just watched their team find a win over number one Arizona. That was insane. I don't know if there's any team in the country that was going to go to Allen Fieldhouse tonight and beat that Kansas team. And I think another portion of the credit has to go to the crowd because Darren Peterson was out and they still willed that team to a close win against maybe the national title favorite.
Yeah, I think anytime you always hear them talk about it on the broadcast, but anytime you go into Allen Fieldhouse, that home court advantage is just something else. And I can only imagine what it's like as a player, but this isn't the first time we've kind of seen this happen. I believe it was the game against TCU, and there was also the game against Iowa State as well, where the crowd just kind of got into it and, kind of propelled some big runs. The Iowa State game was a blowout, and the TCU was probably the biggest fumble I've seen in like the past 5 minutes of a game. But yeah, kind of getting more into the game. Coming into it, I didn't really know what to expect without Darren playing, just because one, it was really a game time thing. It sounded like he warmed up, wasn't feeling it, didn't feel like he could give it his all. And so that kind of just gave room for some of the role players to kind of step in and the supporting cast. And I feel like with Kansas, they've had to play a few games without him, obviously because of the quad and all the stuff he's been having. But there have been moments where they've been able to pull big wins out without him on the floor. I know the Players Era Festival, 3 games there that they probably didn't expect to get without him, or many on the outside didn't expect. But guys like Flory Bidunga, Melvin Council, Trey White. But I really want to focus on Flory Bidunga because I think he's a guy who he has some buzz to go this year, probably more so in the second round. And I don't know if he'll actually wind up leaving, but I think he provides a lot of interesting intrigue as a prospect. Because I mean, today he had 3 blocks, and I was kind of worried how he was going to fare against Arizona's front court because they're one of the better ones in all of the country with Krivas and Koa Pete. And, he's an athletic guy, but he's kind of smaller, especially compared to Krivas. And he had 21 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, and he provided a lot of juice for Kansas to get the win today.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up the blocks because that one at the end against Braden Burries when he was going to the rack, one of the biggest plays in the entire game. If he's able to finish that over Flory Bidunga, it's a different story. I think it was going to be a 1-possession game or even a 1-point game if somehow Burry was able to get that to go. But yeah, I mean, Flory Bidunga, he did it all today, and they needed every bit of that performance without Peterson's scoring. There were some other guys, like you mentioned, that filled in that kind of went from their normal role and raised it up a little bit. I think that's something that we have to give credit to head coach Phil Self, is that he's able to take this team that's a solid roster, but I don't think if this team had no Darren Peterson, I think most of the national media would not favor them as a potential Final Four team. But he's been able to bring this team together, even with the in the lineup, out of lineup scenario, and cobble together some huge performances, and maybe none bigger than this one.
Yeah, and I don't want to discredit Darren at all because I still think he's a great player. I think it's just the issue that you have when his availability has been a concern. And Maybe I'm being optimistic. I think it'll be fine going forward because with the flu stuff, I feel like that's something we've kind of seen affect a lot of people. I'm not gonna get too into that, but with the availability, I feel like there's just kind of this natural like, okay, we don't know what we're gonna look like with him on the floor, but it feels like they've gotten pretty comfortable in big games without him, and we've seen it time and time again. And like I was kind of saying it in the group chat a little bit before, but I feel like when he's not on the floor, you kind of see them play with a little bit more intensity and energy. I think the BYU game, that was the first game where they really looked like a cohesive group, and you kind of saw shades of what that peak can look like with Darren on the floor. But with this group, I mean, I think they're very well coachable, and they have so many guys who can fly around and muck up plays. Melvin Council, I think, he's active defensively, and, the juice and the heart that he provides on offensive side of the ball, I think it just makes him a fan favorite. But yeah, I think they've done a good job of just rallying together without Darren. And I think they have a very physical group of guys. And I also want to give props to Bryson Tiller because he came out the gate. He showed a lot of offensive juice that you kind of hadn't really seen from him at the start of the season.
Yeah, Bryson Tiller, he showed it today. He has almost all the tools offensively to be a player at the next level in the NBA for a long time. It's just he's putting it together still. I mean, he's got the jumper. It's up and down, but on a game like this against the biggest competition they're going to have all season, to have a big offensive night without kind of the Batman of the team and Darren Peterson, I feel like was huge, not just for his draft stock this year, but if he does decide to come back and develop a little bit more next year, maybe alongside another really impressive couple of freshmen with this Kansas team in 2027, I think the sky's the limit for Bryson Tiller, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, if him and Bidunga come back and, they're paired with that freshman group that's coming in next year, and if they do get Tyron Stokes, I mean, I think that's going to be another really, really fun team. I mean, but just the front court, like we already talked about Bidunga, and like with Tiller, he's another guy who, like, I think he's a really good shooter for a big man. Just a shooter. I shouldn't say he's a good shooter because he has been inconsistent at times, but like when he gets hot, he gets hot. And we kind of saw that in the North Carolina game. But he's also a guy who, the stats might not show it, but he's also a pretty good passer for a big man. And I think he's just kind of a smart, high feel kind of big man. And those, especially when you get to the NBA, those are guys who are really valuable. I think maybe there's some questions about Tiller's athleticism and like the defensive stuff, but I can see a role where, he comes and, maybe he's coming off the bench and just providing you valuable stuff as a big man, with the shooting, the floor spacing. And if he continues developing and showing some more of the stuff that he did today, who knows what the ceiling could be for him. But yeah, the front court today for Kansas, I think, was the name of the game. Shout out to Melvin Council. He always is going to do his thing. But I kind of want to get into Arizona now because they probably have some of the more highly touted guys, Braden Burries, Koa Pete. Even though they lost today, what did you kind of think of their performance?
It was really impressive offensively. Braden Burries finished with 25 points, which was one of the best. Looking at the box score now, he actually led the entire game in scoring, both teams, into account. He's just a guy that can go out and get his own bucket against some of the best competition out there in college basketball. So he, among the guards in this 2026 NBA draft class, I feel like he's neck and neck with a lot of the top options. I mean, we saw Michael Brown go for 45 today against NC State. So now he's also at this point in the season trying to rise back up into the not necessarily Darren Peterson range, but definitely the Kingston Fleming and the Arkansas guards, excuse me. So I think Braden Burries, from what he showed today, even though it was in a loss, his offensive bag is deep, and he's right up there with a lot of these guys.
Yeah. I agree full-heartedly. And I know when we kind of did the pre-draft or preseason stuff with some of the guys in this draft, I know he was the guy who I think out of me, you, and Cameron, I think I had him like the highest of him and Koa Pete. Um, and I think that was just because I kind of thought like there would be times in the season where, he was kind of that leading scorer. I don't want to do a victory lap. I never want to be that guy. But I think now you're kind of starting to see that. He's averaging 15 points per game. Koa's averaging 14. Not that big of a difference, but they're at the beginning of the season. I was still high on his game, but it felt like, okay, maybe he's just gonna need some time to figure it out. And I remember me and Cameron were texting like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, he had still been a bit inconsistent at the start of the conference because I think there was 2 games where he scored like single digits. But I was like, I can definitely see a path for him next year still, and like maybe this year if they go on a deep run. But now I'd firmly say, like, I'm pretty confident about taking him like in the first round this year, just because like I think he's shown enough. And not to keep rambling, but also just the 3-point shooting from him. I think that was kind of the biggest question, like at the start of the season. And I was looking at some of his stats earlier today, and like compared to his high school stats, the 3-point shooting, he's taking a lot more shots than he did, prior. And I think he's also just making them more. And he's taking them confidently. Like today, he was 4 for 7. He was coming off screens, whether that be like off the catch or pull up dribble, and also his ability to get downhill. I mean, he's a big guard, and he's also got some two-way upside as well. He had 2 steals today, I believe. So even though he's 6'3", he's a big guard, he can provide offense, and it seems like there's some defensive value as well. And so I think with this draft class, the guard spot has been the deepest aspect of that. And like you said, he's just adding to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting with his fit on this Arizona team because you look at the box score today, he hit 4 of the 6 threes that the Wildcats made as a team. No one else in the starting lineup made one. So what's he going to look like at the next level going to a team that maybe has a bit more of a strength from the 3-point line? Is it going to be better spacing for him? Is it going to be better options where maybe his assist numbers are going up because he's not passing it out to someone who's a non-shooter or someone that is kind of hot and cold? He's getting it out to more consistent perimeter threats. So I think honestly that's going to be where a team can get this Arizona squad in March Madness. He obviously can get the job done from deep. I know Jaden Bradley is a decent jump shooter, but outside of that in the starting lineup, they have struggled this season to really generate that many looks just because it's not really the scheme that favors the talent level of that front court. There are not a lot of perimeter shooters in terms of their leading scorers outside of Burries. So today, I mean, Kansas found a win and they only shot 5 of 15 from 3-point range. We could see a team, not necessarily a mid-major, but another team in college basketball match up with Arizona, knock down 9 or 10 threes in a March Madness game, and it could get ugly.
No, I agree. I think that was something that was evident even from their game, the first game against Florida. But yeah, Braden Burries is going to be that X factor. Koa Pete, did you want to dive into him or?
Yeah, this was a rough one for Koa Pete. I'm a fan of Koa Pete. I like his game. I like his physicality. 2 of 11 from the field though. It's not going to get the job done, especially when you are the team that's number 1. I know it's a insane atmosphere for a freshman, but we got to be consistent. If we're giving credit to Braden Burries as a freshman for stepping up, we can't also give a pass to Koa Pete for not stepping up in that same game. I think he deserves a bit of the credit for why this Arizona team wasn't able to get the job done. But we've seen Koa Pete bounce back and have big games throughout this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if this weekend he puts together something big.
Yeah, and I do want to give credit to Koa. Like, obviously, he didn't have a great performance, but I think also part of that was just the scheme that KU had inside. I mean, Krivas, I think, still had a decent game, but I feel like they did a good job of just rotating and making things hard for them. Because I feel like there were a lot of times too where they were trying to get kind of into that high-low action, and they did a good job of like rotating and taking things away or making passes difficult. Like I think there was even one play where I can't remember who. I believe it was Krivas. Somebody was trying to throw a lob to Pete, and then it just kind of hit the rim because there was that interference there. So yeah, but this is kind of a learning experience. I mean, Pete, he had that hot start to the year, and he looked like he was going to be like maybe one of those top 5 guys. And since then, it seems like he's kind of turned back into what a lot of people thought he would be preseason, which is fine. Like, I still think he's worthy of a first round lottery pick. It's just there's some question marks around his game, but he has undeniable strength and athleticism that will definitely make him an asset at the next level. Not to mention the winning, which they always bring up whenever there's an Arizona game. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to add, or is that all you had for the game?
I mean, this is just a huge win for Kansas. I mean, to come away with this one in conference play against the best team, arguably, in the entire country, without Darren Peterson, who is arguably the best player in the country on your team. I mean, this is a huge feather in the cap for head coach Bill Self and the rest of these guys that stepped up.
I think this performance alone is probably why he's one of the greatest coaches still around in our game.
Agreed.
Okay. Well, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We will be doing more of these throughout the season, so stay tuned. Okay. Good stuff.
There we go.